Roger, welcome to Business Highlights on Trust Television. On the show, we take a look at the biggest developments of the week in the business world and analyze major economic policy decisions and how they affect the average Nigerian out there. I am your host, Chamun Dabeng. Let's talk numbers. Nigeria's inflation rate has once again surpassed its 17-year all-time high. Now, we'll be getting into that right after the break. Don't go anywhere.
Now, as part of efforts to support Africa's goal of strengthening...
Now, looking at the activity chart, as you can see right here, a total volume of 130.
A Boko Haram crisis that at that time was restricted to Yobe.
How secure are they? You can see security men with blood.
This is the road leading up to the...
Or really, if you look at England squad, you are looking at EPL, you are looking at their names. You are not looking at...
That's great. You can see
Nigeria's inflation rate for the month of April has hit a record high of 22.22% from its last record high of 22.04% in the month of March. Since 2022, Nigeria has consistently maintained a high inflation rate, showing very little to no respite for the people of Nigeria. Before I introduce my guest in the studio, let's take a look at this report on the cost of goods.
I want government to do something about human being and human everything with the human. So that everybody must be there, because it's not one person supposed to be there. Everybody's supposed to be there, based on human being.
Like Pascal Hanfa, many residents of the state are lamenting what they describe as the unbearable cost of living. At the markets, the traders are lamenting poor patronage occasioned by lack of money or its depreciation value. They said it is no longer business as usual for many families.
One of the transportation and all these people who gather for say produce whatever they call it. They don't keeping up prices, billing. They don't have normal price to pay them. Sometimes they collect. Just some place man they'll call you. Come on, go to like this 1911 that carry car. They will call you like 30K. You want? Passing to how much you will pay for you.
This condition now, things hard us well. Or else you buy goods now, to you to say amount where you buy now, my problem. Everything to cost. Just to manage life. We need the government help us for here so that they will make our business boom for us.
Families have adjusted their living standards to suit the tough economic realities, yet it appears things are not working.
Even to pay my children's school fees now, it's hard.
The residents also lamented that the Benue situation is aggravated by the non-payment of salaries and pensions to public employees in the state. With this development, they directed their complaints to the incoming government. On May 29, Nigerians will have a new president and 28 new state governors. Many Nigerians who are worst hit by the troubling economy are hopeful things will change for the better.
Nigeria's high inflation rate continues to push the cost of goods and services and further strain already strained pockets of Nigerians. Now joining me in the studio today is political and economic analyst Joseph Ago. Now, looking at this current rate, 22.22%, was this what you projected?
Not the exact number, but I projected that inflation was going to rise.
Okay.
Was going to continue rising. But no specifics as regards numbers.
All right, so obviously this is, it's really not a surprise for many analysts out there, many economists. In fact, many Nigerians probably even expected that there would be another rise in the inflation rate. Now, but what is the basis of this rise? Why are we looking at this consistent? I mean, since 2022, this has been a thing. Since 2022, we've seen Nigeria's inflation figures rise step by step. I think there was only a little bit of respite sometime in January, or was it December, where the figure dropped slightly.
You know, it's interesting that one of the campaign promises of the current administration, the outgoing administration, was promise to tackle problems associated with the economy. So there was security, there was the economy, and there was corruption. So I'll put it this way. You know, there's the rice example, there is the Gary example, but I'm going to use the APC presidential form example to explain the realities around inflation. In 2015, the cost of APC presidential form was 27.5 million naira. By 2019, it had gone up to 45 million naira. 2020, this past election cycle, presidential nomination form for the APC was 100 million. So even in politics, we have seen that consistent rise. So there is no part or there's no corner of the Nigerian economy that inflation has not got into, from the cost of bride price even to the cost of coffins. So it's something that the government promised to tackle, but we've not seen any serious move by the government to tackle inflation.
All right, so at the beginning of the report that we just played, the very first person that spoke about the government doing something to help the lives of Nigerians out there. Now, of course, we're getting ready to transition to a new administration come May 29th. What should the new administration be looking at as far as fixing Nigeria's inflation rate?
I know there are fundamental issues with the Nigerian economy. First of all, our production. Let's look at our balance of trade. You know, let's compare our trading with America, for example, or trading with the UK, for example, trading with even some of our African neighbors. How much we have fed, how much we have done with trading with these nations. So it's a fundamental. There's a fundamental problem with our economy. I mean, power is a problem. We have issues in the oil sector, which is Nigeria's highest earner. There is issue with investors not having confidence in the economy because of a multitude of reasons, from insecurity to the lack of rule of law. So there is, I mean, it's a multiplex, it's a salad of a lot of issues. So the incoming administration would have to deal with a number of issues. I mean, we have listed a lot of them in the past. I mean, subsidy, for example, has to go. The multiple exchange rates that we have, of course, has to go.
Yeah.
Something has to be done with regards to that. We should also even look at reimagining the educational sector and how much skilled labor force would want to really drive our economy. Issues of power, the issues of insecurity, of course. So there's a lot that I'll explain. Insecurity, for example. One of the causes of inflation is when supply drops. I mean, demand continues to grow, but we have a slow or a shock with supply. If you look at the inability of farmers to get into their farms, that has led to a sharp drop in how much of these goods get into the market. I mean, with our growing population, that would automatically drive up the price of goods in the market. So that is just one way of explaining inflation. But we have even imported inflation. Look at the cost of services that we don't really have capacity to really start taking care of in Nigeria. So we depend in offshore for these services. A lot of these services have gone up. I mean, for example, I host some websites, and the prices of these websites have gone up. So it's there are several angles. I mean, there are several causes of the general inflation.
Like you said, it's a salad of reasons out there. Now, we have the NPC that is coming out, I believe, on Tuesday and Wednesday. What do you think the outcome of this meeting is going to be, considering the recent inflation rate? We've also seen the Monetary Policy Committee consistently hike rates. Right now we're about 18%, but we're not really seeing inflation decelerating in any way whatsoever. What is really going on there?
The problem, you know, I remember the argument with hiking rates. You know, the first argument was that is what the rest of the world is doing, the UK, US hiking rates. And there was also the argument that hiking rates in Nigeria would curb inflation. But the problem is we're trying in Nigeria to solve a leak problem. I mean, we're trying to solve a leak by repairing the tap head. So you're trying to fix the tap head, but the pipe is burst. So
basically, it's more like quick fixes, which it's been a really strong argument out there. A lot of people have stated that the President Buhari administration has gone towards more of quick fixes, like you said, more of trying to fix the tap head as opposed to actually fixing the pipe that is really broken. Where is the issue? Where does it really lie in Nigeria's structure?
So we have fundamental issues with our economy. Until these fundamental issues are dealt with, whether we continue to hike rates would have little to nothing with addressing the problem of inflation.
All right. Okay, now we have so many different drivers when it comes to inflation. Right now, food inflation in itself is almost through the roof. It's 24.61%. Looking at these figures, what can you say about this? What does this mean for Nigeria as a whole?
We have a problem with insecurity, and we also have a problem with how very primitive our agricultural system or sector is. You know, a large part of our farmers are subsistence farmers. So there's little to no mechanization, a vast part of our agricultural sector. So we have farmers that are still utilizing say medieval agricultural practices when the rest of the world has gone mechanized and industrialized. So there's a problem of insecurity on one hand, then there's the problem of agricultural mechanization, industrialization, and the utilization of technology to really drive agricultural sector.
All right, so now that we have the outgoing administration, you know, preparing to hand over, what do you think some of the mistakes that they made were? Now, we have talked about quick fixes, just fixing the tap head and, you know, forgetting about the pipe itself. What other mistakes did they make along the way?
I think the fundamental mistake that the outgoing administration has made, there are two. The first is lack of leadership. So we didn't see, for 8 years, we didn't see that visionary, we didn't see that inspiring sort of leadership. And the second mistake was with recruitment. You know, the president had, I mean, two opportunities to recruit the best hands to really put a handle on the problems that bedevil our economy and really drive for solutions. But we've seen people that just got into these places of leadership to just more or less old. I mean, they're placeholders. I mean, there's there's virtually no ministry you look at to say, oh, I can give this minister an A. I mean, it's just
none at all.
I mean, the only part of the outgoing administration I'll give an A really is the DG of the Nigerian Drug Law Enforcement Agency. But I mean, interestingly, so a week ago with the recruitment, we saw the glitches with people unable to really go online and sit for the exam. So that was, I mean, if there is anybody in the administration, will be that I will give a pass mark. I mean, they did a very good job, would be the head of a parastatal and not even a ministry.
All right, so now taking a look at policy reforms, what policy should we be looking at to sort of provide succor to Nigerians? You have a rising cost of living, you have businesses that are struggling to stay afloat because of inflation. We have a rise in the cost of gas, in the cost of fuel, in the cost of, so many things out there. What policy reforms do we need to look at to rein in inflation in Nigeria?
The first policy reform is do away with the multiple exchange rates that we have. I mean, we're cheating business people because the government says, oh, there's the 463 official rate. But how many business people that transact with the dollar, for example, have access to the dollar at the official rate? So that has to be done away with. The second is the issue of subsidy. I think, of course, it's going to bite, but it's going to free up a lot of cash that the government can use to really drive and get certain sectors of the economy up and running. And one sector comes to mind, two sectors, agriculture and education. So there's a problem of low-level, poor quality labor force that we have in the country. So we need to really see how we can appropriately fund the educational system and also reimagine the educational system in light of global realities. Then, of course, with subsidy, freeing up funds from subsidy, we also need to see how we can make funds available to farmers and small, medium-scale entrepreneurs.
I really like the fact that you actually brought up reimagining Nigeria's educational system. We have so many projections right now on Nigeria's unemployment rate. Yeah. We have NESG saying 37%. We have KPMG saying, I think, 40.6% thereabout. I mean, what do you make of this situation? Just before, pardon me, we're actually digressing a little bit, but this Japa syndrome that is going on, how exactly has that affected Nigeria's economy?
I mean, Nigeria is in a very, very good place with the sort of population that we have. But the problem is that we don't yet see a leadership that is seeing that this population structure as a good state. It's more or less a liability to most of the people in government. So we have a 70% youth population. And what you need to drive any economy is a youth population. But that youth population is, you have a problem with education, you have a problem with access to finance, you have a problem with insecurity, you have a problem with healthcare. You see a lot of people end up in hospital and die. I have stories, and of course I've had very, very close experiences with losing young people in our hospital. So these issue of unemployment, we can't just look at the we can't look at it from how much private sector, how much of these unemployed people can the private sector absorb, or how much of these unemployed people can the government sector absorb. We need to really look at it holistically to see what's the quality of the human capital or human resources that we have in this country.
No more quick fixes. Thank you very much. All right. Unfortunately, we have run out of time for today, and we've come to the end of our show. I'd like to thank my guest in the studio, economic and political analyst Joseph Ago. Thank you so much for joining us today. And to our viewers out there, thank you so much for watching. My name is Chamun Dabeng. Come back again. Let's talk numbers.